Welcome back to Live Like It Matters with me, Elissa Kalver, where I sit down with friends who I really admire and love chatting with, and we just talk about living like it matters and all the important things. I am so excited that my friend Vika is here from Portugal. I get to talk to you pretty much every week, which is such a gift, and getting to talk to you in person is like we had to make it happen. So not in our normal studio setup. This is the Elissa Kalver studio setup at Vika's Airbnb, and I think we nailed it.
Absolutely nailed it. Matching sweaters
Yeah, we're matching
for the win.
Yeah, I think from now on, I just need to bring people what I want them to wear and make everyone match me.
This is how you start a cult. I would follow the cult of Elissa.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, I would love to start out with you just kind of telling us about you and like wherever you want to start or stop. And I think that's the best place for us to dive in like we usually do of all the great stuff.
Yeah. If I met you at a party, I'd say, hey, my name is Vika. I'm a DJ of human connection. Stories are my vinyl. And then you'd probably look at me like I have 3 heads, and I'd explain that I am a storyteller, speaker, and narrative strategist running my own advisory called Brave New Story, where I help CEOs, executives, founders, and creatives really understand the power of their internal narratives and how those internal narratives shape the narratives we tell the world. So it's a combination of public speaking with an emphasis on private speaking, kind of like communications major with a storytelling minor.
I love it. Man, throw a DJ at me of life. That's like, how does it get better than that? We met originally, we were talking like last year, not around this time, through Impact 11 in Nashville. And I got to see you speak, and everyone was just like silent when you were up there. We're like, I don't even know if I fully digested what she said because it was so like impactfully amazing. I remember seeing you after, and I was like, I like had to hug you and say hi. And I'm just so grateful that we've gotten to stay in touch since. We've talked about like a lot of things just life wise of diving into like, even, and I don't know where you want to share on your, journey right now and things too of just like uncovering like not just what we do in business or in our careers, but how we take that and translate it into everyday life of living like it matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we met, I was going through a kind of this moment where I recognized that I love being on stage. And because I live in Portugal, I'm only allowed to leave the country 4 months out of the year. And so it felt so special because, like in the absence of something's presence, you re examine its value. And
That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's the kind of thing that, like, you could write that down and someone else could say it, and you'd be like, where'd they read that from? And then you say, it and you're like, please talk to me more. Like, seduce me with your words.
this is the seduction of storytelling. But this principle also originated from a thought experiment that I implemented. And it was like, I called it a year clear. And every year I thought about that one line. In the absence of something's presence, you re examine its value. And so, what would I lose and gain something greater? And so, the first year, I decided I'm doing a year clear of no sex. And in the absence of having sex, I found intimacy and I found emotional intimacy. And that became the barometer forever forward. And then, year 2, I decided I was going to cut out any and every substance. I don't drink alcohol, but really like anything beyond that. And I remember being in a volcano, pulling an all-nighter with friends that were really
Literally a volcano.
like a volcano in Guatemala. And everyone's, doing different party substances. And they're like, Vika, how are you staying up with us? And I realized like, oh, Salvador Dali was right. I don't do drugs. I am drugs.
Yeah.
And then the third year, I decided to cut out refined sugar because I recognized what a slave I was to my cravings. And, growing up, if I was in a bad mood, I'd just take down a jar of Nutella. Like that was totally normal. And that was the hardest one because I was like, I can do a year without dick or drugs, but dessert, like forget about it.
The 3Ds.
3Ds. That's the next New York Times bestseller. And so I found that in this process of taking things away, I learned so much about myself. And now I've started slowly, incrementally building them all back in one by one, but consciously and thoughtfully. And now I'm like, okay, I've stripped the things that I felt were detrimental to my growth. What could I add that would help my growth? And one of those things is movement. And so I started training with an incredible maestro,
Oh,
the
yeah.
yeah, Ido
Mhm.
Portal. And so every year for the last 3 years, I spend 2 weeks in a training camp with him and 40 gladiators. And I'm the
Oh, I
worst
didn't
one.
realize how long that had been. I thought that was your first time doing it.
Yeah, no,
So it's
no.
been
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. And I'm
Just
still the worst one because these people are really they're dedicated practitioners. They show up every day on the mat. And consistency is this thing I really struggle with. And so this year, as like word of the year 2026 commitment.
love that.
What's your word of the year?
Balance.
Oh, tell me more.
I was just thinking about how, like, everyone's always like, "Slow down, you don't need to do as much," and all that, and I did. I slowed down a little bit last month, and I got sick. I was down about it. I was like, "Oh," like, and I didn't want to slow down, and so I started realizing, like, I don't think it's about doing less. I think that it's about picking and choosing what you wanna do more or less of and balancing it so that, like, it all comes to the right height together.
Yeah.
So I've been feeling I haven't I think I've been, like, kind of enacting that a bit, but I almost, need to, like, ramp back up again because I started planning out some trips again. I'm doing a talk in Boston the end of the month, and, like, I'm getting so excited about that, but when I need to find that in between of balancing, like, when I'm traveling, 4 times in a month and when there's a month when we're not traveling at all,
Yeah.
and how do I keep my energy and excitement up in both scenarios?
Yeah, totally. One of the things that I find is really helpful because, being touring speakers,
Yeah.
we have to create really strong, I'd say, boundaries and rituals. And so one of the things I do is like I block off the day before I travel and the day after I travel because nothing good ever gets done then. You're just so overwhelmed with
Yeah.
like getting your game face on that everything else can wait, and just singular focus I find is really helpful.
I love that.
And then something else that I love to do as a ritual is I call them favors to your future self.
Mhm.
And so I make up my bed like a hotel 5-star experience
Ooh, I love
with like
that.
a little love note to come home to and like chocolates. And so that when you roll home, especially after a long flight, it's 2 a.m., you give yourself the gift of feeling like treated like a queen.
I'm gonna do that and surprise Eric next time.
Yes. Yeah, I don't tell him. I'm glad this is our private conversation.
No one's listening. What I love about that too is so Ellie has started the past week or so asking if she could make the bed for me. And if, like, she walks in after she made the bed, if she walks in, like, say, lay my clothes out like that, I'm just, like, I'd shower, getting ready, and then I was gonna come and change. She's like, "Mommy, you made a mess again. Like, I just cleaned the bed." And I love that she took pride in that. Like, we never prompted that or asked her to, really. And it was really yeah, maybe she has that energy and vibe that you're saying without even knowing. Yeah,
Yeah. Every time I see her on the screen, she's such an angel.
yeah,
It's
I love
incredible.
that. Thank you. I love that too with what you said earlier. It's like because I feel like you like romanticize life. Like you make it like something that you're like, oh, like I want to listen more and live this more. Because something I always said in my like normal career pre-cancer, I was always in sales, and I would say, in the absence of value, cost matters. And so the way you said, and I'm not going to repeat it as well as you, so you say it again.
Yeah, in the absence of something's presence, you re-examine its value.
Yeah, and that's like such an extension in a way, I mean, mine is very literal to, like, someone only cares about how much you're charging them, and that can apply to our careers now, like with,
Yeah,
keynote speaking or when you're teaching someone how to tell their story best and all of that, like, if they don't understand the value in what you're doing, then what price even free, like, wouldn't be worth it because
totally.
they're using time. But then taking that also in life and, like, really valuing when things exit and then reevaluating if they should have even existed there. I feel like that's a lot of letting go, especially, like, in a new year too.
Yeah, yeah, I think about it like the things we don't let go are psychological parasites that are taking up precious space in the home of our soul.
Yeah.
And they haven't been paying rent. Like you got to kick it out and then a new tenant can move in. And a lot of times we're just so attached to the way things used to be that we don't recognize the gift of newness and the gift of uncertainty. And it makes sense. Our brains are hardwired for familiarity.
Yeah.
And so the way neuroplasticity works, it's like if you deepen those grooves with a specific narrative, this is why I think re-examining narratives is so, so important.
Mhm.
Your brain is trying to just stay alive. And familiarity is the fastest way to stay alive. Even if that is creating and perpetrating a pattern that's destructive to you, it's harder for you to do a new pattern that's healthier for you than stay with the old. And so that's where I talk about identity level shifts. And that begins with identity level narratives. Like if I want to wake up early,
Mhm.
I'm probably gonna fail, and I have in the past, by saying, like, "Okay, just set your alarm." But if my identity is, I'm a writer, I wake up every day at 6 AM, the first thing I do is write, I'm
Mhm.
gonna have a much higher chance of sustaining that commitment.
One thing that I thought of that I would, like, love your perspective on is I would assume you've thought of this, like, kinda the idea of everything happens for a reason. It comes up a lot in a
Yeah.
cancer space because, we don't like to feel like there's a reason why we got cancer or these things, like and so I've always thought of it like that not everything happens for a reason because it just would be so unfair, like, that's such a harsh reality if that were the case, but I feel like we kinda end up where we're supposed to be or certain things guide us to other things, and I don't know, I feel like you would have a more philosophical, beautiful way of viewing this.
I cancer is something that's touched me personally, as probably every single person on earth. And when my first run-in came with pancreatic cancer, it was with my adopted mom, and she thought that she had done something wrong, and that's why she got sick. And the pain, and she was such a good person, like never hurt a fly, like vegan, never did drugs, nothing.
Mhm.
Not that non-vegans or people who do drugs should
Sure,
ever get
sure,
cancer.
yeah.
But she really fell into this deep depression of like, what did I do to deserve this? And she very much came from the lineage of thought that this is happening for a reason. And I tend to believe we are scientifically meaning making machines. Like our brain is involuntary creating a narrative every 35 seconds. And so we live in this cage of stories often. And so wherever you are, and I think the spectrum is everything happens for a reason, all the way to life is a series of meaningless events, and we just are meaning making machines. And so, I have found myself on any given day deciding I am going to make meaning of something as a mechanism for self soothing,
Yeah.
or I'm going to just release this and just say this is random shit. And so I think it's dangerous to fall into any form of dogma that is not serving you, that is actually hurting you.
Yeah.
And so, philosophically speaking, I think we're always at choice to decide. Like, there's random horrible things that happen all the time. And from backpacking the world and, volunteering at a few orphanages and seeing like a 3-year-old running up to you with one leg because they just happened to be born in Cambodia that had the highest UXO ordinance. And during the Vietnam War, there were more landmines in Cambodia than any other Southeast Asian country. And so 30, 40, 50 years later, little kids are running and then getting their legs blasted off. And it's like, did that happen for a reason? Yeah. Like, because of horrible historical
Mhm.
political divides, that kid had no reason to suffer that pain, and now they're stuck with one leg for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So
Like, who's to say the reason's good?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, like, yeah, technically, there's a material reason why it happens. The meaning, I believe, is in our conscious control.
Yeah, I love the idea of it being a spectrum too, because that's so like us as humans, right? To be like everything, black and white, all this, like some things maybe do happen for a reason. Like there's definitely things where you're like, wow. We were talking about this earlier. Like I met so and so whose roommate's sister was so and so, and then they connected with so and they were following me for this reason, and then we connected and did this amazing thing together. And it's like that's a thing that, yeah, maybe that did happen for a reason. Like that's actually nice to think about, like, that feels good. Whereas it's like, the opposite extreme of a kid missing their leg or me getting diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, it's like, maybe that's one of those things that doesn't have a good reason. And, there can be good that can come out of it. And, I even think about it like with turning pain into purpose and those types of things. And I always try to tell people, like, cancer or a hard time's not a prerequisite for living your life.
Yeah.
Like, it's also like certain things could prompt us to do that, but maybe the tools built up to that, like everything I'm doing now are tools that I acquired throughout my whole life and career
Yeah.
that it also can, it can be a mixture of that. It doesn't have to all be because of one thing or everything is this way or had to suffer because of this outcome.
Yeah, that's such a, like, lived wise lens on it. How do you
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. The Buddha right here. How do you navigate the amount of, like, unsolicited responses? And I'm sure people are really well-meaning,
Yeah.
but when they say things like, "Well, everything happens for a reason," and you're like,
Mm.
"Mm."
So as a people pleaser,
Recovering people please.
recovering people pleaser, um, initially, like, and I think I still do, like, I won't ever be intentionally mean to anyone's face. But at first, the unsolicited advice, like,
Yeah.
I was not really prepared for. And I just, would just be like, thanks so much. I'll look into that. And I was telling a newly diagnosed friend earlier today, actually, that one thing I always hesitate to be like, I hate when people do this because I don't want anyone to feel bad
Yeah.
because I do believe that anyone who messages me, like whether I know them or not, or somebody sends me a text, like they're doing it with good intention. They're not doing it with like ill will. And when people send articles based on the headline, but like that's all they send you, it's like that's like assigning me homework. And, like, while I'm going through all these other things, which I think, like, if you did read something, not just see the headline, but you read it
Yeah.
and were like, "Oh, here's why I think this would benefit," and you sent me, like, a message with an article and being like, "Hey, this might be worth a read. Here's what I took from it," or, like, "Here's what I thought might relate." Like, then I don't necessarily have to read the whole thing, like, you're not but, like, if you're just sending it to me, it's just homework, and every so often at first, I would read stuff because I'd feel obligated to respond,
Right.
and I wouldn't want them to know that I didn't read it. And most of the time it didn't apply to me, or it was like misinformation, or it was good information, but it was for hormone positive breast cancer. And I have
Mhm.
HER2 positive breast cancer.
Mhm.
Like these are nuances I never would have understood before. And I don't expect people to understand now, but also like thinking twice before you send something. So I always tell this story about like within 5 minutes of posting that I had breast cancer. So it's like a little ways in, I was like ready to kind of tell everyone I know in one swoop. I got direct messages, one telling me to go vegan and one telling me to go carnivore. And I thought that was like the perfect analogy for what it's like getting unsolicited advice. Because if you follow both of those, you literally will die.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah. And some of the things that still surprise me a lot is a few people have asked me this before. People will try to find out why did you get it. And that's not helping me, right? They're doing it for themselves.
Yeah.
And again, with good intention and because they're probably scared and they're like, how is my friend in her 30s have stage 4 cancer with no family history? Once they find out like, oh, you're not BRCA positive, oh, this or
Yeah.
that. I have gone asked a few times by people if I had childhood trauma. And, I mean, I'm sure we've all had certain things,
Yeah.
but, like, in general, no. Like,
Yeah.
I'd say, like, I lost my brother 10 years ago, he had issues and stuff growing up, but, like, overall, I grew up in a very loving family and all that kinda stuff, like, my parents are divorced now and that, but, like, what if I went down that spiral of, like, "Oh, yeah, like, because my parents were divorced, because my brother was a drug addict, that's why I have cancer." That's so unfair, like, not only to me, but to all of them,
Yeah.
right? And then how many people I mean, more than half of marriages end in divorce, right? So how many people don't have cancer that so that's where the unsolicited advice, I think it's well-meaning, and I hesitate to, like, blanket be like, "Don't do it,"
Yeah.
because I don't want people to overall feel bad about it, but I think we can do better in,
For
like,
sure.
if it's not worth your time and energy to read the article
Mhm.
and send, like, a quick paragraph of why you think it's beneficial,
Yeah.
then it's probably not worth my time and energy for you to just send it to me unsolicited.
Yeah, especially considering that you're getting it from dozens and dozens of people.
Yeah.
That's a lot to keep
When the
up with.
bee venom headline came
I
out,
was just thinking about that.
that's the one where it's not that that's all wrong. Like, there are certain things that they're gonna study about bee venom, right? And it takes time to study that. Imagine if we just all started, like, stinging ourselves with bees for concentrated bee venom. Like, even if you didn't think you had a bee allergy, like, you could in concentrated amounts. Like, taking turmeric supplements is not the same as drinking turmeric tea or eating turmeric, and it can actually cause liver failure. I found that out recently.
Wow.
Yeah, through one of, a dietitian that I highly respect. We were talking about it because of lowering inflammation. Like, not all things are, like, blanket statements, and so when people sent that, I find it interesting because it's like, that is super cool. Obviously, I've seen it. I'm clearly active on social media. I've seen not have I seen the article, but I've seen so many posts about it since. But then also, like, we grasp on to this, like, excitement of something new when there's so many exciting things that already are proven and exist. Like,
Mhm.
most people don't know that, like, I can take a blood test every couple months and find out if my tumor markers have gone up or down. Like, I just got the results the other day that my, blood test called Signatera is still negative.
Incredible.
And I still had a brain MRI yesterday, and I have a PET scan coming up because it won't detect other types of cancer yet.
Yeah.
But, like, the future is that we'll be able to know with a blood test
Yeah.
if we have cancer. Like, that's so cool. But it just can't happen, like, tomorrow. No one's hiding it from us. It
Yeah.
just doesn't like, we haven't proved it yet. We haven't learned enough about it yet.
Yeah. It's like one of the things that I just like really admire about you is your own capacity to rewrite your narrative. And when you're given something that feels as especially the way it's delivered often as a death sentence and you're like, "Mm-mm-mm,
Mhm.
I'm reclaiming my life." Talk to me about what that meant to you to rewrite that narrative.
I love this how we keep flipping who's interviewing who. You know, we really needed, like, a whole day for this, so I'm sorry I was late. But, sorry, say that one more time.
So because I think this is really powerful when it's like, how do you take agency back over a narrative that you've been given by a person who's in a position of authority that says, "Hey, this is your destiny," and you're like, "No, no, 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 that's not how it's." How did you rewrite your narrative?
I think I didn't know this then, but going back to my word of the year of balance is, like, before cancer, I'd kinda be like, all or nothing, very admittedly and self-aware of it, and it's part of what gave me some of my biggest successes and part of what probably prevented me from, other types of successes. But now I balance it out where, like, it doesn't need to be like, "Hey, you're never gonna walk again. Okay, I'm going to run a marathon." Like, it's that can be a spectrum too, and there's things in between. And so I've tried to stay away from being like, "I'm never gonna drink alcohol again. I'm never gonna eat this again or do this again."
Mm.
And just, like, not making everything a thing and kinda being like, "Yeah, I don't drink as much because it does cause cancer, like, that's proven, but every so often, like, I was at a Rams game the other day, like, I'm gonna have a beer, like, that to me is a social thing that I enjoy. If I didn't, I wouldn't have it, you know? And so by, like I think before I always looked at it like, "I'm this," or "I'm that," and, like,
Yeah.
"This is the way I am," and I think we're so quick to do that in general, like and I think it's great the more that people are comfortable being self-aware, like, when people be like, "Oh, sorry, I'm so ADHD for this," or oh, I'm blanking on other examples. But I think it's good to be self-aware, and I think it's important to not lean into it so much.
Not to overly identify and overly pathologize yourself.
Because people would always say, like, cancer doesn't define you and all of that. And I still haven't worked that out fully of like how to articulate this. But like in some ways, cancer does define me in a really positive way that like I'm very proud of. Like, I'm very proud to say that I have stage 4 cancer and I'm doing all these things. And there are things that I did in different ways too when I didn't have cancer. But, like, yeah, I'm doing it despite cancer, but I'm also doing it with cancer. Like,
Yeah.
I'm making a bigger impact because I can relate to people doing certain things. I can empathize in a different way. I felt that way when I lost my brother 10 years ago. Like, I had never lost an immediate family member, and someone that was so unexpected and tragic and close to you. And I felt like I developed this new confidence in my empathy
Mm.
where if someone did lose a parent or a sibling, I felt comfortable, like, reaching out and being like, "Hey, just to let you know I'm thinking," like, 'cause
Yeah.
I don't know the right ways to reach out to people
Right.
in my same situation because 'cause we're all different, but I found that, like, so comforting in life to be like, "Okay, I'm not afraid to, like, eh, check in or ask what happened," or if I talk to them, like, I'm more bold with that in a gentle, empathetic way, and that's, like, created so many deeper relationships since then.
Yeah, I think that when you can read all the books and podcasts you want about an experience, but until you've lived it, it's just knowledge. It hasn't alchemized into wisdom. What
Yeah.
you're bringing is a level of wisdom with your compassion.
If you I'm sure you have so many life-defining moments, but, like, if you had to pick your, like, cancer, right, of like, kinda how we're talking about that, what would be yours?
She's good, ladies and gentlemen. She's very good at this job. Yeah, like life-shifting moments. I do this with all of the students that I work with is I have them tell me like what were the 3 moments seismically shifted your life. I'd say the first was, uh, my dad walking out, and that divorce and the brutality of how he did it was like watching your hero fall from grace all the way down to hell. Like, it was so brutal, and it really destroyed every concept I had about trust and family and, unconditional love, and that was really painful, and I fell into kind of my first deepest depression ever there and worked my way out of it because there's nothing like earning 6 figures as an advertising executive to get over the loss of feeling worthless when a father walks out on his kid. And then the second time was when the most important man in my life suddenly died, my grandpa, because when you don't have a dad, your grandpa steps up to the plate. And I had quit my job in advertising and I went on this 18-month world tour and I was volunteering at a refugee camp in Greece and I was like, I am living my life's purpose and I was going to stay there for 4 more months and help with fundraising. And then very tragically 2 days later he died. And that moment, it was like all of the festering wounds of the father abandonment wound came rushing back.
Mhm.
And I moved to LA where I had no friends, to be a few blocks away from my grandmother, my sisters, my mom, and the kids. And it was just a very, very dark time. But I really believe this. In the darkness comes the light.
Mhm.
And in that darkness, I fell in love with philosophy, psychology, and psychedelics. And the kind of confluence of those 3 things helped me understand how do I make meaning from this mess.
Mhm.
And so those were kind of like the 2 major choice points. And then the last was moving to Lisbon, which was probably the best thing I did for myself next to freezing my eggs when I was 28. And I
Mhm.
did that 2.5 years ago. And I found my people, I found my community, I found land I love to live on. I'm moving to this little farm. I found the love of my life. Like I found my like soul space. And I think environment shapes us so, so much. And so for anyone who still feels like they haven't found that spot, like, yeah, you could stay where you are and keep trying, or that spot just might be waiting for you in another city, in another land.
Yeah, I love that. And it might just have not been the time before you found that spot or, like,
Totally.
wasn't meant to land there yet, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like there's so many moves within our life that I like because I look back at everything, like career, life moves, and you think, like, "Is there anything that I would have done differently
Mm.
if someone gave me the option?" And I think I can honestly say no because I'm like, "Well, but I don't know, I'd be nervous that if I didn't do that job that I hated, would I have ended up at this one that I loved or, like, done that?" My only regret in life is actually, like, this is the only thing, and I say it all the time whenever people are getting married, and I think about it because we talked about having a camera and, like, easy to do content. I regret not having a videographer at my wedding.
Oh my gosh.
And at the time, you're budgeting everything,
Everything.
and you're like, "Flowers cost what?"
Yeah.
And, we had such an amazing photographers, and I'm like, "We don't need video," and it was in 2013 that Eric and I got married, and I'm like, people can take videos on what, their, like, flip phones at the time, or, like, new iPhones. I guess the iPhones because we met at the Apple Store in 2008.
That is notebook, watch out.
I'm dating myself further than needed, but, there's there's some little videos, but not really, and not like we have today, and I don't have a video of my brother's speech at my wedding,
Mm.
and he wasn't I didn't ask him to do a speech, it wasn't part of the thing, it was, like, after my dad did his speech
Yeah.
and bridesmaids and groomsmen did, my brother asked if he could grab the mic too, and he had prepared a speech. And, like, my brother and I had such an interesting childhood and life together and ultimately losing him, but, like, that was when our relationship was really at its peak and, like,
Yeah.
is really like, I remember the feelings I had from his speech, but I don't remember the words.
Yeah.
And, like, to be able to rewatch that or even have more footage of my brother talking at the age around when I lost him would have been like, I would give anything for that.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that makes so much sense.
so that's the only thing I always tell people when they're getting married. I don't care
Yeah.
how much you've already spent. Like, even if you have to find a local film student
Yeah.
or designate a friend, like, whatever it is, just get
Footage.
good footage of your wedding.
Even if it's shaky.
Yeah. Yeah, but we have so many resources now.
Yeah, totally. I wish I wish I had not been so financially illiterate because I think at the time when I graduated, when I left advertising and I had my whole life savings and
Mhm.
all I did was kept it in my savings because I was just like, this immigrant kid where like growing up money hurt and I didn't know how to invest. My dad was horrible with money. And so I guess I invested in myself. But to your point, it's like, looking back and connecting the dots, like, and that's also something that now, maybe you and Eric can have like a wedding part two and
I've been thinking that.
yeah,
Yeah,
videotape it.
I know. I'm like, and when you think of now, I mean, we got married when we were engaged at 24, we got married at 26. So I mean, we're 38 now. Like,
Yeah,
some of our bestest friends, we didn't even know when we got married.
exactly.
And some of our still best friends now, like, we're in our wedding, which is amazing. But, like, to relive that, I think but then I still think, like, "Oh, well, like, but if I did it this way, I'd wanna spend this, and I don't have the money to do that." And then you think of, like, well, I don't know, what like, would you ever regret doing that? Like, I never regret, buying better seats at concerts. That's always the example I give.
Yeah.
Or, like, because I was a financial advisor a lot of my career, and, like, I always spent more money on my car because I drove around Southern California all the time,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that was, like, my office. Whereas, like, other people might be like, "Oh, I wouldn't spend that on my car," but they might be going clubbing every weekend or, like, certain things, like, we all value certain stuff.
We just did this workshop in Mexico City with a group of friends where it was like, "What's your money story?" And it was like, "What are the things that make no sense that you're willing to drop big bucks on? Whereas, what are the things where you're like, nope, not spending anything?"
I love that. What were some that, like,
Like
spoke to you the most?
culture, I will never not spend money on culture, and I define culture widely as anything in the arts, so concerts, or learning. Like,
Uh-huh.
I spend, like, really good money studying from incredible teachers. Food, I will drop a lot of money on cooking my own food or going to, like, a gastronomical experience.
Mhm.
I'm not as crazy about spending money on clothes, like, I love vintage shopping,
Mhm.
and because of the line of work that we do, like, we have to look really presentable, but I I'll never drop 2,500 on a pair of Christian Louboutins. Like,
Yeah.
I'm experience over object all day, every day.
Love that. I also would look like a newborn deer, like, trying to walk in Louboutin, so it wouldn't be wasted on me. But, I was gonna say something from what you just said. I like how you categorize culture because a lot of people will be like say it, I think, similarly with experiences or travel, but that all blends into culture, which I think is more expansive for what makes sense. Because, like, I definitely like to travel, but not like I couldn't imagine some of the trips that some of my friends have done, like, I would love to do it, but it wouldn't be where I'd spend, like, 10, $20,000, that I'd be able to. But, like, my everyday life, like, the home I'm in, the car I drive, like, I'm all about, like, the things that I get to use every single day to not feel like I have to be on vacation.
Ooh, I like that.
I've been saying recently a lot more about living a life that you don't want to escape.
Mm.
I don't know if we've talked about this more
No,
yet.
tell me.
Okay, so, like, This whole idea, I remember when I moved to LA, grew up in Boston, and, like, moving to LA from Boston, drastic weather change, and I remember that in the winter, my friends would be like, "Oh, but you don't get snow days. Like, we get snow days." And I'm like, "If you hate what you do so much
Much.
that you like, if that's the sole reason to substantiate being in cold weather." Now there's other reasons to be in a certain area, but, like, if we're gonna narrow it down to that, like, you're not happy. You're not doing the right thing. And so I started thinking of that, like, living in Southern California now for 16 years, I feel like I live where I would want a vacation. Like,
Yes.
I can drive an hour or 2 in different directions, and I could ski, I could be at the beach, I could be in Santa Barbara wine tasting, like, that to me is, like,
Paradise.
still enjoy the vacations and the travel, but don't live for them
Mhm.
because, like, we shouldn't want to escape our everyday life.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly to that point, I had a great friend named Lee who said, we need to stop chasing paradise outside and recognize paradise lies within.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I really hit me in the head when I was super sick from it was after my first recurrence. So, like, my initial chemo worked really well, and then my first recurrence where it was in my left breast, and I had a couple tumors in my brain, which have for 3.5 years now not returned and been resolved, which is amazing. Not through surgery or anything else, just through medicine, like through chemo, which
Incredible.
is wild. But the medicine that got rid of them destroyed me. Like, it's the first time that I've ever felt clinically depressed. Like, I always thought, like, "Oh, yeah, I know what it's like to be depressed." Like, I did not. This was it. It was where, like, I would wake up and not wanna be awake. Like, I wouldn't want to be alive. And, like, I didn't wanna hurt myself or anything like that, but I'm like, "I don't wanna exist right now. It's so painful." And so it's like I prioritized that. It was like 6 months later where everything was under control and I wasn't dying or anything like that, and we voluntarily switched treatments, which is a huge decision when there's limited amounts of treatments, and it's like the proudest, best thing I ever could have done. The next 2 years, I was on a treatment that, like, worked so well, such great quality of life, and so my oncologist and I kinda have this we've talked about it where she's like, always mention side effects, like,
Right.
big or small.
Yeah.
And she's like, I will tell you if you need to suck something up. Like, if
Yeah.
we're at a point where, like, we don't have other options, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But, like, we're not even close to being there. So don't suffer through life. Like, and that's my whole don't just exist and stay alive and
Mhm.
survive. Like,
Mhm.
we deserve to live fully.
And that's one of the things I loved about co-writing that keynote with you was like, what does it look like
Mhm.
to go all in, to live like it matters?
Yeah.
And so for people who aren't in the same experience of seeing life as precious as you do, um, how do you make them kind of have that come to Jesus moment and realize like, hey, you only get this ride of a lifetime once. Wake up, live it intentionally.
Yeah. I think that a lot of it is not waiting for that big aha moment that's like cancer.
Yeah.
There are plenty of big moments, micro moments that will make you aware that life's important, or just like I always tell people you can steal mine. But like, just valuing ourselves. Like I think we don't enough at all. And that's why we're always willing to delay happiness. We're willing to like work hard at the job we don't like so we can get the promotion and all these things. And it's like we know time and time again from such, big thought leaders and researchers that like that is how we continue to never be happy. And I think that once we value ourselves enough to accept that we deserve that, like we deserve to live like it matters, it's not a luxury. Like joy isn't optional. It's a
It's a
mandatory thing that we
birthright.
deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
I want to make sure that we touch upon with you. So like all the time, especially now that I post a lot more about my speaking and all that. I love hearing more people who like want to get their voice out or their story out. And I never know, because I'm fairly new to all of this too, like where they should start. And I know you work so closely with people on like crafting their story. Like if you were to kind of guide someone through, if I came to you being like, I have no idea of positioning or what keynote speaking is,
Yeah.
here's my story that I have now either way. Like what would be what the journey you would take me through?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if you can solve problems for people, you'll always have a job. And so look at where is their suffering
Mhm.
in the world, and what are kind of the universal themes. And so choose who you want to serve. Who do you want to help get out of their suffering? And it's likely somebody who's also gone through this same thing that you've gone, because like we talked about earlier, it's not theoretical. Like the greatest teachers I've ever had are teachers that have lived through some really hard shit, and then they've come out on the other side with these gems. So, what are the gems that you can glean from your own narrative? That would be step one.
Mhm.
Because if you're still in this like victim mentality of like, oh, this happened to me, it's like, okay, life happened. And what did you do with that thing that life handed you?
Mhm.
First, establish your what your unique insight is. And once you know that, then you can be like, oh, I want to help other people who are suffering from this thing. And because I've lived through it, I can uniquely do that. Like one of the things that people come to me for is, I was in corporate America and I was doing really well,
Mhm.
but I just had this nagging feeling that like I was meant for something different. And I jumped. I saved up for 7 years, so I financially could afford to figure it out. And so I've had many friends and students over the years be like, "Is it safe to jump?" And it's like, "Well, let me walk you through what helped me feel like it was safe to jump." And that
Mhm.
might look different for you. And so really what I believe we are is we're all vessels for each other's healing. And our stories are blueprints of a way forward. It doesn't have to be the way forward, but stories hold the wisdom. Nobody ever wants to be lectured to. But when you tell your story and they get this moment of possibility, it's because stories are the carriers of hope, and hope is core to humanity.
Mhm.
So when I hear your story, it's like, oh, you fill me up with so much hope. So, understand your story would be the first step.
Mhm.
Understand the wisdom in the pain, and then be able to identify who you want to help and craft your story in a way that gives them hope.
I love that. And then at what point of that is it time to call you? Like, what
Anytime.
anytime.
Vika Talks 24/7 hotline.
And I'd imagine I know you work with executives and stuff, not just speakers.
Yeah. I work with CEOs, executives, founders. I mean, the truth is like everything is a story. And once you unlock this capacity to communicate through the power of story,
Mhm.
you have people mesmerized. Like you persuade through story. So, I had a friend who was like, oh, Vika, no CEO wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I need my team to be a better storyteller. And it's like, well, I'm sure every CEO wakes up in the morning and says, I wish my team could communicate better.
Mhm.
And so I feel like what I'm doing is a re education to help people understand that communication is storytelling and storytelling is communication. And you can't have one without the other because our brains are hardwired to process the world through story. So if you want to create paradigm shifting change, you have to operate at the system which the brain is processing, which is story. So I'm here to help people understand the power of story and not just their public speaking, but aligning their inner narratives with their outer narratives,
Yeah.
because then you get coherence, then you get alignment, then you get authenticity.
I love it. This whole conversation, like I'm excited to watch back through. There's been so many things that you've said in like such amazing eye-opening ways that have like triggered in my brain things that I had learned from like sales training, corporate training, entrepreneurship and business. Like the finding the problem, that's what you do in entrepreneurship. Like you don't just start a business that no one needs a solution for.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So, like, if we looked at all these things not as just, like, one thing, like, "Oh, well, that's only important when I'm selling 401k for a living or I'm in advertising." It's like, no, these things are all important, and more than one thing can be true. I
Yeah.
think we, like, specifically decide what a word means, like storytelling, whereas
Mhm.
you're showing people that that can mean communication, that like, how
It
that's a pla
means emotional regulation. The story you tell yourself is the amount of stress that you're going to create. And as a leader, the story you tell the team is either going to improve morale or make everyone feel defeated.
Yeah.
Woo!
Oh.
Saved by the bell.
Okay, well, so where can everyone find you?
Yes. everyone can find me at bravenewstory.com and across all social media, Vika Talks, VIKATALKS.
Well, like,
And on YouTube, Vika Talks too. Yes.
I love it. I love it. We'll put that all in the notes too. And I can say from a personal testimonial, like not only is it learning from you is such a game changer for things, but just getting to experience like conversation with you on a regular basis is like a life enhancement beyond anything I've experienced.
Thank you so much. It's truly you are the highlight of my week.
Aw.
Really, really, because your generosity of spirit is so powerful and it lifts you up and it's like, well, I can do it. She can do it. We can take over the world together.
We can do it. We got this.
We got this.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I love you.
Love you too.